So reasons and excuses are related, but in a sense, they're kind of opposites. So if I say, let's say I yell at you, like we're in a relationship and I yell at you, right? And you say, well, that's wrong and that's bad. I don't appreciate being intimidated and I don't want you to yell at me. That's not affectionate. It's not loving. It's not caring. And it's bullying and all of that, which is all true, right? Yelling is just a form of escalation to intimidation till the person has to either leave or surrender. And those aren't fun options if you're in a relationship. So it's giving people impossible options. Or whenever you present in a relationship an option which the person, neither option do they want. They don't want to leave, but they also don't want to just be bullied, right? Then that's negative. So if I say there's causality for my yelling, right? I learned how to yell because my mother yelled. Then a lot of people say, and that's just who, I mean, this is how I was raised. This is, I can't change it and so on, right? But, the question is, if I yell at you in a relationship and you say to me, that's bad, that's wrong. And I say, well, but my mother yelled at me, which she did. When I say my mother yelled at me, then of course the next question is, and how did you like it? And the answer is, well, I didn't like it. And it's like, well, because you didn't like it, I don't like it either. So if somebody knows that they yell because they were yelled at, then they should also know that yelling is wrong because they didn't like being yelled at. Now, if you have the habit of being yelled at and therefore your go-to in conflict is to yell, then saying that there's causality is important because otherwise you're just causelessly aggressive, right? Like if somebody was raised, really, really well, really reasonably and peacefully, and then they just incomprehensibly, in a way, start yelling at people in relationships, that would be bizarre. It would be like, well, I didn't ever get exposed to Japanese, but now I'm speaking Japanese. I was never aggressed against as a kid, but now I'm just really aggressive as an adult. I mean, you would look for some sort of cognitive problem, I think, because it wouldn't really make any sense. So saying, I'm not an evil guy because I'm not just causelessly yelling at people, but that's how I was raised and that's how I was trained, is a way of saying that it's not embedded in my nature, right? It's not like I'm subject to gravity and I yell. It's also not saying it's a causeless choice. Well, I was raised really peacefully, but one day I woke up and just decided to start yelling at everyone. It's saying that I have a susceptibility to yelling because I was yelled at. So having some causality makes sense. But then you need to contact the part of you that really hated being yelled at and have the part of you that wants to yell stop yelling, if that makes sense, right? You have to put yourself in the other person's shoes and saying, my mother frightened me when she yelled at me, so the last thing I want to do is become my mother to other people.
Right.
Right? So when people say, well, I yell because I was yelled at, and I've heard, of course, a zillion stories over the years of people who confront abusive parents, and the parents say, well, it's how we were raised, and it's what everyone did, and it's all everyone knew, and blah, blah, blah. So those are excuses, right? And if you say as a parent, I yell at you because I was yelled at as a child, you're saying that a bad childhood is an excuse for everything going forward. In other words, the reason and the excuse are the same. And if somebody says the reason and the excuse are the same, then they won't change. And of course, the hypocrisy comes that the parents, as adults, yelled at the child. They yell at little Bobby, and then Bobby, at the age of 20, yells at his parents, and they say, oh, how dare you yell, right? It's like, well, you yelled at me. It's like, yeah, but that's how we were raised. It's like, yo, that's how I was raised. So I get to yell at you now because that's how I was raised. So they will not give that excuse to their kid. They will not say to the kid, you should yell at us because you were raised by being yelled at, and we yelled at you. So we yelled at you because we were raised by being yelled at, but you can't yell at us even though you were raised by being yelled at. That's just the hypocrisy, right? That they want to dish it out and they don't want to take it, which is kind of natural for that kind of corruption. So when people say, and usually it's an insight, right? Usually it's an insight where they maybe go to a therapist or anger management and they say, that they get that connection. The wiring is sort of put together where they say, oh my God, the reason I yell is because I was yelled at all the time as a kid. That's kind of all I know. That's my go-to response to conflict is to yell because that's all I was taught. So that's an insight, right? That's a connection. So now you have causality. And then you can work with yourself, not that you're bad, wrong, or evil, but that this is how you were trained. And now that you know that, you're responsible for stopping it. And you are responsible for seeking out that knowledge, right? I mean, if somebody pretends to go be a surgeon and they cut someone open, right, then they're responsible for that, right? So if you go out in the world and you just act out without knowing yourself or thinking about why you might be doing negative things, you're responsible for avoiding that knowledge, right? But so once you have that connection, then it's no longer an excuse. Now it's like, okay, now I have to not do it because now I know why I do it. I yell because I was yelled at. I hated being yelled at. So a basic compassion for other people means I shouldn't yell at them. So finding causality is important. And it's sort of like if you don't know why you keep getting, hives or whatever it is, and it turns out that it's peanut butter, right? So you are now responsible for not having peanut butter because you're allergic to peanut butter. It keeps giving you hives, right? So if you yell and you find out the causality, you're now responsible for changing your behavior to not do that anymore. But a lot of people were like, well, I yelled because I was yelled at. And it's like, but you didn't like being yelled at, so why would you do that to others, right? If it's used as an excuse, it's a promise of repetition. If it's used as understanding the causality in order to change it, like I'm not going to eat peanut butter anymore because I keep getting hives, have a negative effect on me and others. Or, if there's some food, sorry, but you said your husband, so your wife, this kind of stuff. So let's say that as a husband, there's some food that makes me super gassy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't eat that food because I don't want to subject my family to, biochemical World War I level gas tank warfare because I'm eating something, like some 5-bean salad or something like that, where I'm basically just jet skiing around the place on endless reams of gas, which is unpleasant for everyone else. So I will either, like there's these little, I think it's Beano or something, like you can take this stuff. Every now and then my wife will make something that's chickpea based or bean based or something, which I like. But I have to take those little pills to reduce the amount of gas that I'm going to get. You can take them afterwards or you can take them before. I generally take them before. And I take them very rarely, like once every month or two when my wife makes one of those sort of bean or chickpea-based meals. But I'll take that kind of stuff because, well, A, I don't want to be farting all day. And it's also, my wife, I don't want to Dutch oven my wife into oblivion, right? So knowing that causality means I got to change my behavior. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Great question.